The day begins. Boys awake and prepare for the demands of the day. A day that embodies learning, discipline, and honor. A military way. The AMA way.
The one thing that stands out in my memory about AMA was the honor system, that really meant something and was really enforced by the cadets themselves. And it was enforced with good fairness and good judgment.
Taught you to be a young man who relied on yourself, your character meant a lot, who you were. People would take your word for things because they knew that you didn't lie, cheat, or steal, and that was one of the big things for the school.
AMA's honor code and strict discipline were strong, and for the most part, it kept these young cadets in line. However, anytime there's a group of young boys thrown together, there will be mischief.
Everything was going well up until about mid-year, and then there was a knock on my room at about, I'd say about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the officer of the guard said, "Raj, the guardhouse has been painted, not very well, but in red." So I said, "Oh, good golly." So we got some gray paint and we repainted it so that in the morning it was back to its normal color. Now, whoever did that, I think they were very disappointed.
Sometimes they would go around and take all of the shoes and toss them out into the courtyard. So when reveille would sound, people would get up, start looking around, there are no shoes, and pretty soon the whole barracks would be abuzz with the fact that there were hundreds of pairs of shoes just tossed singly out into the courtyard. So before we could go to breakfast or anything else, we had to go down and mill around and find our shoes and get them back and shine them, of course, because we had to have the shoes shined before we could eat breakfast.
Trying to put a cow up on the 3rd floor. And that was always fun. They tried that my senior year. In that prank, which makes it a good prank, actually, you know, a cow will walk up steps, but it won't walk down steps. And so it would take a monumental thing to get that calf off of that 3rd floor.
Years passed, friendships formed, and the cadets stayed the course. A strong sense of brotherhood would blanket the AMA's walls. The cadets became educated and disciplined, mature and honorable young men. They worked hard to make it to graduation.
Over the year, you probably know 90% of everybody's first name, and you develop a camaraderie. And that camaraderie and discipline, that goes with you throughout your entire life. And that's the AMA experience.
They were the brothers that I never had. Perhaps they don't know that, but that's exactly what they are.
You know, I think we have a brotherhood. We have this common experience that binds us together in a way that is probably very special and not experienced by other people at all. And I think that that is the glue that kind of pulls it together.
Well, graduation was great for me, and you know, we had our final ball, and we all dressed up in our uniforms, and we go to the dance, and we have our dates who we think, you know, we're madly in love with at the time, but and the whole weekend is just spectacular. You know, you're sad that you're going to be leaving your friends, but at the same time, you're excited about a new adventure that's ahead, you know.
My grandfather would get up at the final formation after graduation. All the cadets would be up there in front of barracks. A lot of tears would be flowing. And usually he'd have a cadet bring him a chair, and he'd get up and he would say, "Tonight, the sun will set on an empty barracks." And of course the tears would really flow then.
And the saddest part of it was when we had our last formation, and those cadets actually cry. Those full-grown boys, 18 years old and so forth, because we knew we wouldn't see each other. Many of us would never see each other again. We'd been so close.
We didn't want to leave. We knew it was our last time together, and we didn't know for how long. So there were a lot of tears shed on that particular day. And it was sad, but a great day. We graduated.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Throughout AMA's history, the nation experienced conflicts that called AMA cadets to war. Many who had studied and lived within AMA's walls made the ultimate sacrifice.
While we were at Augusta Military Academy, it was the famous December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor. At that point in time, all of us, 16, 17, 18 years old, knew that we'd be fighting a war. And that's what we learned at Augusta Military, is the military ways.
And I, like most, and certainly many Americans, had no idea where Pearl Harbor was. And after that, I went into the invasion in Sicily. That was an invasion. And Salerno was an invasion. And Normandy, D-Day, was an invasion. And southern France was an invasion. So there was 4 invasions.
As the Marines were getting hit, we sent one battalion over in that area to assist the Marines. A battalion's about 800 men, and then you add attachments like a heavy mortar company, and that one battalion was the one I was telling about, that only 6 officers and 70 enlisted men came out alive. So it was about 800 people.
The day after I reported to my unit, I was out flying missions. Came out of Vietnam with about 1,300 hours. It was the central player in that whole war was the helicopter more than any other thing or individual. The helicopter kind of defined Vietnam, I think. Things that I remember the most are the expressions on the faces, the smiles, the looks of appreciation when we would bring hot meals in on Christmas, or when we would do something to relieve the load or to brighten the day or to do something that would make the lives of the guys on the ground a little better.
The Fallujah of 2 years ago that was leveled and where the Al-Qaeda guys were mostly killed and captured and some fled, that city today has been rebuilt. That city today functions. That city today is a safe haven for Sunnis that are leaving Baghdad. They want a safe place to go, they go to Fallujah. It is a success story unto its own right. And again, everyone's alive. The city's at work. Apartment buildings are being built. There's a lot of great things happening, but it doesn't make the news.
And on Memorial Day or on Veterans Day, we would call the roll of the people who died in the wars, and some cadet would be assigned to step forward, salute, and say, died on the field of honor, sir.
We lost a number of cadets in Vietnam. I think it's about 15. I may have that count wrong. But we did not realize that until somebody began to really research the number that we had lost in Vietnam. It was over 50 in World War II.
After 104 years of turning boys into men, a series of circumstances combined to force AMA to close its doors in 1983. From a declining market to adverse reactions to the Vietnam War, from a weakened economy to AMA's steadfast belief that the boys always came first, Augusta Military Academy made its last roll call.
The parents would tell Colonel Roller that I can't afford to come to school this year. And his answer was, your son needs to be here. We'll worry about the money later. That was his philosophy, was that if it was good for the boy, the rest of it will take care of itself. And therefore, maintenance on barracks was not being held up. But then you have to ask yourself, would you trade Colonel Roller's philosophy on raising boys to keep the school alive?
AMA was more than simply a school. It was more than simply a place that you came to acquire a better education. It was more than the sports. It's our hearts and our minds and our fond memories of what we experienced there.
I think we can all remember where we were when we were told that the school was closing. It's like losing, your family. I mean, it's a part of you is going to die off. We all left something in Fort Defiance, Virginia. A part of us is still there.
It was a very, very sad day for me, but it's a hard thing when you lose a part of you, as the school was.
You hate to see something that you hold in your heart very dearly no longer in existence.
I read an article in the paper about it, and boy, it stunned me. I went by there once, my wife and the kids, and it was all closed up. So I shook my head and said, well, that's a shame. So we closed. But we persevered.
We still come to that school, and we do it every single year. We come back to tell war stories and see each other, shake hands, and so it's still there. It's all done because we love that place. That was kind of home for us as teenagers.
After the church bought the property, we had a buffet lunch during the reunion in the old gymnasium. He stood up, very quiet. He said, fellas, welcome home. Not too many drives the old boys were there then, and a lot of emotion involved.
Regardless of the outside appearance, you still hold in you every image that made every building in that place a part of your life. You know every single squeak of the doors in the barracks. You know the number of bars on the gates and the blacktop where we spent numerous hours marching and practicing. And the golden moments of the Sundays when all the families would show up and you in your best uniform, along with your schoolmates, marching around the bowl, looking your best, and the yells and screams in the gym. You never forget.
Ad astra per astra, to the stars through difficulties.